Welcome back. I thought we'd take a few minutes and do a short review here so you can begin to attune your ears to certain key terms and phrases. We're going to talk about context and significance. This, of course, is how the lectures are structured around these basic ideas. And these, of course, are the type of questions you're going to get on your exams. So I thought we'd go through some key terms that we've encountered in these first couple of weeks of the course and talk about their context and significance. First, the steplands. Now, when you see the steplands on your exam, ask yourself what is the bigger picture, the bigger story, of which the steplands are merely one part. What are they a part of? Where did we talk about the steplands? We discussed them in the context of the Mongol Empire. Why are they significant? Well, the steplands are a short belt of pasture that run east and west across Eurasia. And this is the area upon which the Mongols subsist. The Mongols, of course, are nomadic, moving back and forth across the steppe. And this pasture provides food for their livestock. The Yuan Empire, our next term. Where did we talk about it? What is it a part of? You'll find that most historical terms can have multiple contexts. You could say the Yuan Empire is a part of Chinese history, or one of the Chinese dynasties. But how did we discuss it? Where did it arise in our lecture? We talked about the Yuan Empire in the context of the Mongol invasion of China. The Yuan Empire is the Mongol dynasty over China, ruled, as you may remember, by Kublai Khan. So context, the Mongols, the Mongol Empire. Significance. It's significant because this is the Mongol dynasty over China, and significant in our course because, of course, Marco Polo claimed to have traveled there and to have met with the great Khan, and then later wrote about him, which, of course, inspired Columbus to go back to China. Third, the description of the world. This, of course, is the title of Polo's book. So context here would be Marco Polo. The bigger context would be probably the Mongol Empire. Significance, we talked a bit about the description of the world, and we went over those things, those cultural peculiarities that Polo never mentions in his book. I think we talked about foot binding and cormorant fishing and just a number of things. Christian converts, where did we talk about it? Where did it come up? We talked about it in the context of Columbus's pitch. You remember Columbus has a few minutes to convince the king and queen of Spain to back his venture. And Christian converts are one of those arguments that he makes, in addition to spices and gold and on and on and on. So the context would be Columbus's pitch. Why significance? You have to remember that Columbus and Isabella and Ferdinand, these are devout Catholics. The idea of converting millions of Chinese pagans to Christianity is very alluring and is one of the chief goals of Columbus's adventure. Next is the Tuscanelli map. You may remember Tuscanelli, the Italian nobleman. He and Columbus passed this map back and forth, making notes on it. So what is the context? Columbus's maps. Remember we talked about probably half a dozen maps that Columbus consulted. Why is it significant? The Tuscanelli map indicates to Columbus that he can quickly, easily, safely cross a narrow ocean from Spain and reach China. There's no Western Hemisphere. There's no Pacific Ocean. So that's the significance of this map. It convinces Columbus that the world's quite small and that he can reach China quickly. 6, Imitatio Christi. Context. Where did we discuss it? In what lecture did it come up? We talked about one of the consequences of the Mongols being the Black Death, or the bubonic plague. And then in that context, we talked about Imitatio Christi, that notion of living and, if necessary, dying in the way of the Lord. So you might remember the flagellants, whipping themselves, wearing a crown of thorns, carrying crosses, imitating Christ. So context here would be the Black Death. That's where we discussed it. Significance, well, this is one of the means by which Europeans sought to avoid the plague through this public penance to God, demonstrating that we were already punishing ourselves. We don't need further punishment. 7, aromatics. Where did we discuss it? What is its context? We discussed aromatics in the context, again, of the Black Death. You may remember that these aromatics are significant because they're an attempt to ward off the stench of the plague, whether it's through something that smells very sweet, like rose petals, or herbs, or something that smells very bad. So Black Death is the context, significance, an attempt to ward off the plague. Flagellants, we just talked about the flagellants, so this has the same context, doesn't it? The Black Death or the bubonic plague. That's where we discussed these people who whip themselves, who practice imitatio Christi, this public penance. Again, significance, a means of trying to ward off the death that accompanies the plague. 9, the middle passage. Where did we talk about it? What is it a part of? Context here, obviously, is Atlantic slavery. You can go even further. What's the context of Atlantic slavery? What's that bigger thing that Atlantic slavery is a part of? Triangular trade. Remember, African slaves, New World commodities, European manufactured goods. You can go even bigger. What's the context for triangular trade? Probably the Columbian Exchange. That's what initiates this sort of unification of the Atlantic basin, creating this vast circuit of commerce. And then finally, smallpox. What's the context? Where did we talk about it? What is it a part of? We talked about context here in the context of the Columbian Exchange, did we not? You remember one of the significances of the Columbian Exchange is the mass die-off of the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. So that's the context, and the significance is obvious, isn't it? Smallpox is one of the chief, most deadly pathogens brought to the New World by the Europeans, and it contributes to this decimation of the population of the New World. So just a quick review, looking at some key terms that we've discussed and placing them in their historical context, and then determining their historical significance. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you.